Okay, خلاص, it's good. تمام. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Hi everyone, I'm Shahd Mutaz, and today we're going to be covering the cardiovascular system. Best the heart chapter. I don't know, some people are expecting blood vessels. That's impossible, okay? But today we're just going to be covering the heart chapter, and I'm going to be doing the physiology part first, and then we're going to do the anatomy, as most of you have covered this, and we're running short on time, and the chapter is difficult. Okay, so in order to understand the physiology part, we're just going to do this part of the anatomy, the valves. So as we all know, we have the atrioventricular valve and then the semilunar valves. So the atrioventricular valve is in the tricuspid, which is found on the right side, and then the mitral valve, which is found on the left side. And then the semilunar, what do the semilunar valves guard? Where are they found? Exactly. So they guard the entry of large vessels, صح؟ فعندنا الأورتيك, عندنا الأورتا, والpulmonary, and the pulmonary. Okay. It's important that you guys know what these valves are made up of. This was a question actually. So they're made up of flaps of endocardium. What is the endocardium? Inner layer of what? الهارت wall. أنا بتذكر عندكم البيريكارديوم وبعدين عندكم الهارت wall. The pericardium, which was made up of fibers and the serous pericardium. والserous pericardium كان عندنا صح؟ parietal والvisceral والlateral والfluid. وبعدين عندنا الهارت wall. الهارت wall, which part of the pericardium was also a part of the heart wall? Visceral. What do we also call it? Epicardium. فعندنا epicardium بعدين epicardium. Guys, myocardium, and then the endocardium. So epicardium, which is also the visceral layer of the pericardium. بعدها myocardium, بعدها endocardium. It's also important that you guys know that the endocardium is also continuous with the blood vessels that exit and enter the arteries. يعني basically إذا كان عندكم شارع هيك طويل وإذا عندكم لفة. See هاي الرصيف اللي is connecting الشارع باللفة بالدخلة. هذا الرصيف هو الاندوكارديوم. لأنه الشارع الأساسي هو الهارت، واللفة الشارع الفرعي هي blood vessels. فthe endocardium, which is الرصيف, is continuous من الهارت chamber لبرا لعند blood vessels. Okay? For the endocardium, أول شيء two things: continuous with the blood vessels exiting and entering the heart, and it also forms our valves. The valves اللي هم tricuspid وكلياتهم, all of them are formed by flaps of endocardium. You guys know over here إنه عندنا papillary muscles والchordae tendonae. Where do we find the papillary and chordae tendonae? Which valves? The Are they found with semilunar? No. Semilunar, they're just valve. They're just cusps هيك hanging, صح? So the papillary muscles, which are over here, they tether the endocardium cusps to the wall of to the chamber of the ventricle, صح؟ وبعدين عندنا الchordae tendonae, which apply more يعني stability. So over here, the rule of thumb that we always have to know is how the valves open and close. Don't worry. Okay. So the rule of thumb that we have to know is pressure always moves from high to low. صح? Yeah. Pressure always moves from high to low. So over here, we're going to be talking about the atrioventricular valves. The atrioventricular valves, they're between the atrium and the ventricle. So the atrium, the first one over here, which is the tricuspid, okay, it's found on the right side. How is this one going to open? In response to what? Pressure. In the atrium, صح? When we have a lot of pressure in the atrium, this valve will be open. Why? So that it allows the blood to flow from the atrium to the ventricles. How is it going to close? In response to more pressure in the ventricles. Why do we have all of this أصلاً من الأساس? Exactly. And when the ventricles contract, if we didn't have this valve over here, the blood is going to go up back to the atrium. So this valve is going to close in response to the ventricles contracting. What about the chordae tendonae and papillary muscles? In which scenario are they contracted and in which scenario are they relaxed? They contract the track and they open. Relax. They contract open the valve and they relax and close the valve? No. Yeah, the opposite. Okay, so they contract to close the valve and then they relax to open the valve. لأنه هم أصلاً their main point is to prevent the cusps from going outward. لأنه you think of this by the way as an umbrella. Hang on, I put the picture. Okay, think of this as an umbrella. Over here, the stick of the umbrella is your papillary muscle. بس الكوردي tendon is those الحدايد اللي طالعه فهدول. فإف you didn't have كوردي tendon والpapillary muscles stabilizing تخيلوا انتم هون الventricle وهون الatrium. لما الventricle contracts it's going to go up like this the cusps endocardial cusps are going to flap outwards. It's like لما يكون في a lot of wind بالumbrella صح it's going to flap outwards. But this is exactly what happens. Yeah, you have to know when it opens and when it closes. ممكن مثلا كمان يجيب لكم a question إنه about which one opens and which one closes in response to changes in oxygen. يعني مرات هاي هلا هون what's it called? The AV valve over here. It's closed when we're pumping through high right ventricle. It's pumping when. Exactly. It's pumping oxygenated or deoxygenated blood.
Deoxygenated.
Okay. Same thing for the semilunar valves, but over here we don't have the papillary muscles mycellar. It's just in response to pressure. لما يكون عندنا high ventricular pressure, they're just going to open the valves here, they're just going to push them to the side of the chamber, and then they're going to pass through. And then when we have more aortic pressure, رح يكون لما يكون عندنا more aortic pressure, رح يكون blood على semilunar valves like this, and nothing's attached to them because they're just attached to the heart wall. And yeah, that's it for this part. It's pretty easy. هلا, why are there no valves compressing venous entry? Why are they not? لما the atrius contract, صح blood can backflow.
Yes.
Can backflow into the superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, will chew the other one that empties into the atrius.
Coronary.
Okay, for these three things, they empty into the coronary sinus. Superior vena cava from where? Anything above the diaphragm. Inferior vena cava, anything below the diaphragm. With coronary sinus اللي هي تجمع veins من الheart itself, from the myocardium. Okay, so wait, why do we have a coronary circulation من الأساس?
Because the big blood vessels, they don't send blood to the heart itself, and so the heart muscle needs blood for moving and working.
Exactly.
So the coronary
circulation has to work. Basically, the myocardium is way too thick for your classical diffusion, so that's why you need a specific, you need specific arteries and veins just for the heart itself, and we call this the coronary circulation. All of it goes back and into the coronary sinus, which empties into where? The right atrium, which goes بعدين in the lungs so that you can get the oxygenized. Okay, so again, why are there no valves in the and the superior vena cava, inferior vena cava? Okay, first that's the first reason. The second reason,
when it contracts, it doesn't allow the blood to run through.
Exactly. فعندكم الcontraction of the atrium هيك بيعمل زي compression على the entry points of the superior and inferior vena cava, so no blood backflows. وشوية بيكون في backflow, but it's minimal and يعني we don't really worry about it. Okay. هلا over here عندنا very important homeostatic imbalance. طيب عندنا أول شيء incompetent or insufficient valve وعندنا valvular stenosis. Can someone tell me the difference between them? يلا wait هاي أحمد يلا عندنا كادي أوكي خالد.
Isn't this for the candy?
The answer, so I give you a candy.
What's the question?
What's the difference between incompetence and valvular stenosis?
Okay. incompetent, it doesn't open fully. Stenosis is hardening of the valve.
Okay, so basically, the incompetent or insufficient valve, it doesn't close properly. So what does this lead to? If the valve doesn't close properly, what does it lead to?
Backflow.
The blood is passing يعني عادي. It passes, it goes من الاتria بتروح لعند الventricle. There's no problem in the passage of the blood. The only problem is in the backflow of the blood. This isn't incompetent or insufficient valve. It's simply not doing its job because it's allowing backflow. عكس الvalvular stenosis اللي هي بصير the valves become stiff. The stiffening of these valves بصير في narrowing. So where is the problem here? It's the passage of the blood. Okay, so مثلا in this case the blood will not enter من الاتria للventricles. فobviously حيصير عندنا شو low إذا دارسين اللي بعده cardiac output. Okay, حيصير عندنا low cardiac output. But there can be a lot of reasons for this, like calcium salt deposits or scar tissue. When can متى ممكن يصير عندنا scar tissue formed بالheart? Heart attacks. Okay, multiple heart attacks. Okay, multiple heart attacks. They're going to lead to forming of non-contractile scar tissue. لأنه لأنه الheart المسل تبعتها it's like a nerve tissue. It's amyotonic يعني if it gets damaged once, it's hard for it to regenerate and form like more cells. So that's why إذا بصير عندنا multiple MIs, multiple myocardial infarctions, رح يصير عندنا non-contractile scar tissue which can lead to muscle overload. Let's say صار عندي MI بالleft ventricle. شو رح يصير؟ بالleft ventricle. Okay. Low cardiac output. صح كمان كله صح. Okay, so damage to which of the ventricles is going to be the most dangerous? Left ventricle. And this one's the main pump to your systemic circulation. So this could be a question they can ask you. Damage to which of the atrias or the ventricles could be would cause the worst ramifications? You're going to immediately say left ventricle. Okay. Oh, but then okay, let me just get to the physiology part. هلا عندنا الconduction system of the heart. هلا أول شيء the main rule of thumb أول شيء we got one rule of thumb out of the way اللي هي pressure always flows from heart. Now the second rule throughout this whole chapter is electrical events precede mechanical events. So you have to have electrical events or mechanical events so that you can get a contraction, صح? But what are the electrical events in this case? Action potential, صح? So you have to get an action potential. ولما يصير عندكم action potential is the only time where you can get a mechanical event. So quickly, we're just going to revise like how a normal cellular action potential would go. Usually, high cell membrane عندكم potassium inside and Na and calcium outside, صح? But this would make the outside more positive than the inside. But this is resting or is it like action potential?
Resting.
ليش؟ لأنه جوا is negative وبرا positive. Okay? فهلا لما يصير عندنا action potential, usually what initiates action potential?
The opening of sodium channel.
Good job. أنت uses your channel. كفو عليكي. Okay. The opening of the sodium channels is what usually starts an action potential. The opening of means sodium, not the efflux of potassium. What does the efflux of potassium do? Exactly. And what if I have a lot of efflux of potassium? Yeah, good job. فهلا رح نحكي هون about the main function of calcium when we talk about heart cells. تمام. هسا I hope you guys can see. I'll zoom in واحدة. Okay, فهلا بالheart we have two main cells. We have the pacemaker cells and then we have the contractile cells. But the pacemaker cells are what form the rhythm of the heart, صح? هلا something very characteristic about the pacemaker cells is that they have something called autorhythmicity, meaning they generate their action potential مع نفسهم. They do not need any higher brain neural input. يعني basically they are the brain of the heart. Okay? So they're self-excitable and they set something called the basic rhythm of the heart. What do we call this basic rhythm?
Something
Systole contraction. sinus rhythm. Good job. Okay. فالpacemaker cells set the sinus rhythm. Which pacemaker node or which pacemaker area is the main one? The SA node or the sinoatrial node. And this one is the fastest one, and it sets the sinus rhythm. اللي بعدها, which also is a pacemaker cell, but it's not that fast, and it's also after, the main brain of the whole heart is main SA node. هلا let's talk about the action potential that is generated أول شيء عند SA node. احنا بنعرف مثل ما حكينا إنه action potential or depolarization wave is usually due to مين؟ sodium influx, صح؟
Yes.
In the pacemaker cells, it's different. The sodium influx does not generate depolarization. It generates something completely different. It generates something called the pacemaker potential. اللي هي basically kind of something like the resting membrane, best for the pacemaker cell. تمام؟ فهذا pacemaker potential is generated by مين؟ Sodium influx. The sodium influx in the pacemaker cells do not generate your action potential, or they do not generate a depolarization wave. What generates the depolarization wave? It's the calcium. It's the entry of calcium. صح كان عندنا calcium outside, but the calcium is going to enter the cell, and that is what's going to give you your depolarization wave. And then right after that, عادي حيكون عندنا K plus efflux like we normally do. The main take home point from this whole slide is what generates the depolarization wave in a pacemaker cell? Calcium influx. Okay, ممكن نحط لكم efflux and then you forget, but make sure it's influx and it's outside. تمام؟ هلا so we're done with this. Now we're going to go to contractile cells. هلا as you can see كمان انتوا اخذتوا المسل chapter last semester, and you also know كيف action potential is generated there, صح؟ And this doesn't look like the one that we're used to. صح؟ This one has like this wave over here that we have never seen before. But we're going to explain what this wave is. But right off the bat, the function, the starting point is pretty similar to the muscle cells that we're used to. اللي هي the depolarization wave is caused by مين؟ Sodium. بعكس هناك calcium. Well, it's normal. It's just like we're used to. It's the sodium influx into the cell that causes the depolarization wave. عادي حيكون عندنا. By the way, هاي أول شيء this blue line is ventricular action potential. لكن this curve over here هاي شو؟ لا. لا.
Depolarization.
أيوة tension. It basically indicates a contraction. Okay, but this blue line, هاي blue curve, it's the ventricular action potential. هون عم نحكي عن action potential, عم نحكي عن current. لكن هون عم نحكي عن contraction of the ventricle. بعدنا احنا بالventricle. Okay? فأول شيء, what's going to happen? The sodium is going to enter the cell. It's going to cause a spike in the membrane potential. حيكون في extremely positive charges inside the cell, which causes your action potential. فهلا usually احنا خلص متعودين نخلص نطلع action potential نرجع repolarization. But this is initially what happens. Initially you're gonna get depolarization. This is called partial repolarization. اللي هو the K plus, the potassium ions are gonna want to leave the cell like they normally do. لأنه حتى هون they immediately left the cell. أول ما صار عندنا depolarization they immediately left the cell. لكن هون they're gonna leave, but then they're gonna realize إحنا مش normal cell, إحنا heart muscle, meaning إنه إحنا we have to have specific characteristics that allow the heart muscle to function like it should, which إنه إحنا بنعرف إنه the heart muscle, the whole heart doesn't contract as a whole. The heart مثلا عندكم الاتria have to contract, في delay, بعدين بصير عندنا ventricles have to contract. But this whole process is going to ensure that happens. And the heart contracts rhythmically. The heart contracts not as a whole. And if it was as a whole, you would not get the proper function of the heart. But how do we ensure that happens? And then this thing called the plateau. What initiates this plateau? Slow calcium. Exactly. Slow calcium influx. هون الكالسيوم شو عمل لنا بالبيسميكر؟
Depolarization.
أما هون it's going to sustain depolarization. There is a difference. هون it initiates it. هون it sustains it. But هون عندنا sustaining of depolarization. Now this happens for two reasons. The influx of calcium into the cell happens for two reasons. The first reason is I want a long absolute refractory period. what does this mean؟ احنا نعرف هلا مثل ما حكيت the heart has to contract at specific timings. ف if انا بدي اول ما يسكت الكالسيوم يصير في عندي contraction. And this contraction has to happen at a specific time. I need to ensure that this contraction is sustained and that another contraction does not happen مثلا right over here. Like if this was a normal cell, okay, حيصير عندي depolarization هون وبعدين فورا حيطلع لي another action potential. I don't want that. I need it to contract first and contract properly and fully before I can generate another action potential. For this absolute refractory period الطويل that is generated by mean by calcium is what ensures إنه يكون عندي a long absolute refractory period. Okay. The second reason that this happens اللي عندنا شيء اسمه calcium induced calcium release. Okay. Calcium induced calcium release. Release from where? The cytoplasm. Okay. Good job. Okay. ففي شغله اسمها calcium. By the way هذا كل حكي بالكتاب انا ما عم بطلع من عندي. تمام؟ calcium induced calcium release. احنا هلا فات عندنا الكالسيوم. This calcium is not enough to generate an actual contraction. This calcium is just to open يعني just to start a cascade of calcium inside the cell. نعرف إنه عندنا sarcoplasmic reticulum. You guys took this in the muscle chapter. The sarcoplasmic reticulum is going to secrete calcium into the cell. ليش? Do you know the whole troponin binding tropomyosin thing? The calcium has to bind to troponin so that it starts contracting. فمن وين أنا رح أجيب كل هذا الكالسيوم؟ Obviously the calcium that just entered the cell is not enough. فلازم يفوت calcium. This calcium مثل ما حكينا أول شيء creates the plateau اللي بيطلع لنا absolute refractory period طويل. ثاني شيء calcium induced calcium release اللي هو it tells the sarcoplasmic reticulum يلا لو سمحتوا طلعوا كالسيوم مشان نبدأ contraction. That's basically it for this. And then how does the action potential in the heart cell travel from one cell to another? Gap junctions, which are found in. You got one? Okay. The intercalated discs, they have gap junctions. As we're going to move on, the specific cases in the heart that don't have gap junctions, and they have a reason for that. If you have a lot of gap junctions, what will this indicate? Fast movement of the action potential. If you have low gap junctions, slow or بصير عندنا delay. وهلا رح نحكي عن these delays. تمام. Is everything clear in this slide?
Yes.
الكالسيوم عندنا ليش يقلل مو المفروض يزيد لان الكالسيوم موجود؟
لانه كمان انت طلعت K plus out فاوريدي صار نيجاتيف. فهمت علي؟ K plus هنا صار عندك partial repolarization صح؟ So that's already got the membrane potential down. But this is just going to sustain what's happened. It's not going to increase either one. Make sense? Any other questions? Any other questions? Everything's clear?
Yes.
Oh, and another thing, as long as calcium keeps entering the cell, you're going to keep having a contraction. As long as calcium is entering, you're going to keep having a contraction. فأول ما الكالسيوم يبطل يعني موجود، أول ما الكالسيوم channels يسكروا، immediately شوفوا الكونتراكشن كيف نزلت، بطل عندنا contraction. تمام. هلا let's talk about how the action potential that was just generated by the pacemaker cells اللي هلا حكينا عنهم, how is it going to travel to the whole heart? عندنا this specific pathway. Okay. فهي intrinsic pathway of the heart. عندنا أول شيء it starts at the sinoatrial node, the SA node. This is شو حكينا, what does it generate? Sinus rhythm. Okay, it generates your sinus rhythm. And how many beats per minute? 75. So this one is the fastest one. How is the sinoatrial node going to tell the whole heart إنه يلا you also have to contract? أول شيء حيكون عندي something called the internodal pathway. Internodal pathway دي مو مفرجينه هون. You think it's just traveling in the air, but it's actually like more neurons, like attractive neurons that connect the internodal pathway to the AV node, which is the second node over here. And by the way, it's very important that you know the places of them. لأنه إجانا سؤال إحنا مثلا it was for the bundle of his, it was like which of the following is the correct location for them. So بيجيبوا لكم the name of it and then the location. So most all of them are wrong except one. على إلنا it was the AV bundle. The AV bundle is found when شو هالمكان؟ Interventricular septum. So it was the AV bundle dash interventricular septum. بعدين مثلا بحطوا لكم atrioventricular node is found at the apex. Is it found at the apex of the heart? No. So obviously it's wrong. But make sure that you know the location. فمن الاسم atrioventricular node, where are you going to find it? Between the atria and the ventricles. هاي هون بنلاقيها and it's connected to the sinus SA node by internodal pathway. طيب هلا there's something very characteristic about the AV node. لازم هون يكون عندنا a delay. What is the function of this delay? يلا
Stop.
انت خلاص اخذت. So the ventricles can fill up properly for the Okay. انت اخذت شوكولاته؟ Okay, awesome. Okay. فهلا the function of the AV node as the delay of the AV node for just a split second, literally 0.1 seconds, allows the atria to contract fully and like give out all of the blood that it has to the ventricles before the ventricles contract. Then if we did not have this delay, the atria and the ventricles are going to contract at the same time. That means the ventricles are going to contract قبل ما they're full. But that's wrong. I have to make sure that the ventricles are completely full before they can contract. صح؟ تمام. طب هلا how is this delay possible? يعني they're all the same neurons, they're all the same cells. Exactly. Exactly. So عندكم narrower myocytes and you have less gap junctions, which I already said قبل شوي. If you have a lot of gap junctions, هيكون في faster impulse travel. Less gap junctions, slower impulse travel. طيب هلا كمان في كمان شغله اللي هي الكاردياك skeleton. We didn't get to it, but I'm sure you guys studied it. The cardiac skeleton, it makes sure that all of the impulses in the heart travel at specific times and in specific places مثل ما احنا بدنا مثل ما هلا بدنا. But over here, the atria and the ventricles are separated by a cardiac skeleton. This is going to make sure that the atria and the ventricles don't contract at the same time. Is that clear?
Yes.
Any questions?
No.
Good. Okay. So next, رح نروح للatrioventricular bundle, which is found again where? Interventricular septum. Very important to know the places. What's the other name for the atrioventricular bundle? Bundle. Okay, بعدين عندنا bundle branches, and then we have the subendocardial network, which is also called the Pacemaker fibers. But you have to just know they can also get you a question of the order of them. But it should be pretty easy. يعني should fast. Okay. So again, they can get you the location. They can get you the beats per minute. Make sure you know them. Sinoatrial node, the fastest one, 75. AV node can also generate impulses. When will the AV node be generating impulses?
When SA node.
And it's obviously going to be a lot slower, صح?
Yes.
But it's 50 beats per minute. طبعا high range. It can be من 60 ل 100, high من 40 ل 60, وهاي أقل من 15 ل 30, something like that. Okay, فهاي ال AV bundle, which was found in interventricular septum, على 30 beats per minute. By the way, I'm pretty sure you guys remember the stars important. Okay.
Yes.
And as we said, the atria and the ventricles are not connected by gap junctions, and they have been بيناتهم cardiac skeleton. هلا we now know the rhythm of the heart is set by mean. We know by the way, how do we know this? How do we know it's set on its own? How do we know the SA node does not require any how do we know it's autorhythmic? How do we know it does not require any brain input? It is the pacemaker. But how maybe it's not innervated. Okay, but there's by the way, it's written in the book.
Yes.
احمد
Indela Bengata controls the.
اوكي صح لا قبل في شغله. How did we find out ان the heart is autorhythmic and it contracts out on its own? Exactly. If you in a heart transplant, if anyone ever saw a video of the surgery, in a heart transplant, if it's a tunnel of heart برا, like on it, without a body or anything, it's still gonna be pumping. Why? Because of the SE node. طب هلا احنا بنعرف انه the heart مش طول حياتها 75 beats per minute. يعني ال SA node دائما 75 or 100 at max. Okay? But what if I need 120 and I need even more? شو رح يصير؟ I need the input of higher brain centers. Which area in the brain? هذا السؤال اللي في الامتحان. البرين stem بس يعني higher المهم the brain. Okay? ف the brain stem اللي هو شو أول واحدة؟ يلا CNS brain stem. Midbrain. Good job. So the medulla oblongata is what controls the cardiac activity. عندنا هناك two important centers اللي هما ال cardio-accessory and the cardio-inhibitory. Which one is more dominant? الانهبيتوري. وليش accessory؟ انت هلا لما قاعد your heart isn't pumping really fast صح؟ ف usually it's inhibitory. And what else do we have to cover? Okay, how will it act? How will the inhibitory, the parasympathetic one act? Decrease. Yeah, decrease, but how will it act? Something بالaction potential. How will it affect the action potential? صح في acetylcholine بس في شغلة كمان. Okay, acetylcholine is gonna act high neurotransmitter. بعدين بالaction potential نفسه. صح. Okay, we're going to make sure إنه عندنا lower membrane potential. We're gonna make sure إنه the inside of the cell is negative, not positive. And how do I do that? I remove all of the potassium من السل. فحيصير عندي إيش؟ حطلع البوتاسيوم حيصير عندي K plus efflux, potassium efflux out of the cell. By the way, you guys know شو efflux و influx صح? Some people might not know إذا جايين من وزارة. Influx, entry of ions into the cell. Efflux, exit of ions out of the cell. شو صار؟ Okay. So, how does it again? Who said, by the way, who said hyperpolarization? sorry. Okay. Parasympathetic is going to act by hyperpolarization. It's going to make sure we have a negative interior, we have a negative intercellular space. How will the sympathetic one act? How? That's a way, yes, okay. But the main thing, with contractility. What affects contractility? Calcium, okay. So we're going to increase calcium inside the cell. Then حكينا, as long as there is calcium, we will have a contraction. But عندنا a lot of calcium, والcalcium هذا ما عم ننشال. Obviously, we're going to have a lot of contraction. Contractility is all of that. Increasing contractility is a part of the sympathetic nervous system, and you need more cardiac output. Makes sense. So, any problems? Perfect. Which nerve is the nerve responsible for the parasympathetic? Vagus nerve. But the vagus nerve innervates the heart, and it's مثل ما حكينا the inhibitory influence is the dominant influence. يعني at rest most of the day, unless you need to, your heart rate is pretty low. So this is called the vagal tone. This resting tone is called vagal tone. What's going to happen if I cut the vagus nerve? لا سمح الله صار عندنا lesion, صار عندنا cancer, or صار عندنا fracture. This is all you're going to learn هالاشياء بMSK إن شاء الله. إذا صار عندكم anything affecting the nerve, faster heart rate. Yeah. شو هون حيصير؟ Faster heart rate. Why? لأنه you're removing the inhibitory influence. تمام. That makes sense, صح? So the two questions that they can ask you in the slide: which higher brain center is responsible for controlling the cardiac activity? Medulla oblongata. What's going to happen if we cut the vagus nerve? Faster heart rate. Good job. Okay. هلا الهوميوستاتيك imbalance. فممكن يصير عندنا defects in the intrinsic conduction system مثل ولا حكينا منهم كان لا الأسئلة لازم ممكن تخرب صح؟ هاي الأشياء. ف other areas of the heart are going to take place, making the heart rate a lot lower. Other problems that can happen is إذا كان عندنا خلل بالnerves itself مثلا بالneurons, they're not properly conducting impulses, or one of them is slower than the other. This is going to make the heart not contract rhythmically. This is going to create something called irregular heartbeats or arrhythmias. ففي فرق بين irregular heartbeats and fibrillation. Irregular heartbeats is just contracting يعني متى ما بدها irregularly. لكن fibrillation it's uncoordinated atrial and ventricular contractions. Meaning إنه they can contract together. ساعة this doesn't contract, ساعة the ventricles contract, ساعة the atrials don't contract. So it's just like all over the place. You can kind of say that the fibrillation is a little bit worse لأنه ممكن the ventricles start pumping and they're not even full yet. So you've basically exacerbated the ventricles, you've tired it out, or it's not even full. You didn't send any blood into the body. Okay, so what else? So how can I fix fibrillation? Defibrillation. And how do we do that?
Energy shock.
So we shock the whole myocardium. We're going to depolarize everything. And at first, you might think, okay, you're depolarizing the whole myocardium. في عندنا areas that are احنا نعرف إنه the whole myocardium does not depolarize at once. It does not repolarize at once. The atrias have to do their job first. بعدين بصير عندنا. So how are we depolarizing the whole myocardium? What about the areas that are repolarizing? Isn't this just gonna like affect everything and like kind of you're gonna create even more fibrillation? What happens is you create a new heartbeat. And it's like the first heartbeat after all of the chaos. And this heartbeat is caused by depolarization. You create a new heartbeat, and then on from that heartbeat and forwards, you're gonna have normal heartbeats. Okay?
Yes.
And something very important one is heart block. So what's heart block? By the way, في heart plug ما حكينا عنها because it's in anatomy. في heart block. الفرق. Okay.
So SA will work more. There will be more speed.
Okay, yeah, you're close basically. So the heart block اللي هو لما يكون عندنا the ventricles are not working as proper pumps. يعني بيكون عندنا خلل في transmitting the impulses فحيكون عندنا complete heart block اللي هو the ventricles don't know when to contract, when not to contract. So they're just going to be هيك contracting like crazy وحيصير عندنا يعني المهم what you have to know heart block ما حيصير عندك systemic circulation, proper systemic circulation. So how do we fix heart block? Exactly, you're going to add a new pacemaker. And the pacemakers are intrinsically not working. But you're going to have to add a new pacemaker. Maybe Allah ya'afiyahum, any of your grandparents, they have pacemakers in their heart. This is to ensure that they do not experience heart block. لأنه sometimes the AV node ممكن ما بيشتغل ventricles were not contract properly. بما إنه هون إحنا what's heart plug? Heart plug, مش block, high block. Plug. It was one of the first homeostatic imbalances. No, هذيك atherosclerosis. No. It's okay. أرجع لها؟
One of the very much better.
I know that the names are really annoying. You know that's why أنا حتى if you saw my notes I sent them I put all of the homeostatic imbalances in 2 pages and they were just all over the place. Yeah, well, they're new terms, but it's okay عادي. You still have time for the exam. They're basically mean the same thing. Cardiac tamponade is heart plug, and block was the intrinsic conduction system. The heart plug basically happens when you have a lot of inflammation between where the pericardial cavity, which is made up of exactly, and the parietal and the visceral حكينا it's also called the epicardial. فهلا هون عندنا tamponade. The tamponade is when we have so much pressure on the heart that it does not even have space to contract. And how does this happen؟ لما يكون عندنا a lot of fluid بالpericardial cavity اللي هي الcavity between the visceral and the parietal layer. هناك عندنا some fluid. What's the function of this fluid? Serous fluid.
To make it easier.
Increase friction. يلا. Okay. فبالcardiac tamponade is when you have مثلا a lot of inflammation. By the way, there are so many reasons for this. حتى ممكن bacteria. أيوة. An infection we call it أول شيء شو بنسميه infection in high area. Pericarditis. هي infection بالpericardium. Infection بالpericardium is going to lead to roughening of the pericardium itself, and that's going to lead to pain. وبعدين it's also going to lead to an inflammatory response by the body. صح؟ اللي هو getting a lot of neutrophils, getting a lot of eosinophils, whatever. Okay? This bringing all of these white blood cells into this area is obviously, and a lot of fluids is going to create your inflammatory fluid. But this inflammatory fluid that يعبي the pericardial cavity, it's going to press on the heart and inhibit and like impeding its function to contract properly. فهاي هي heart plug or cardiac tamponade وهديكا heart block. So make sure and how do we treat this? We drink it. Okay, we take a syringe and we remove all of the excess fluid.
وعطانا symptoms. احنا لازم نحدد المرض. كيف نفرق بين الارثميس والفايبريليشن؟ ايش symptom الاثنين؟
الاريثمياز مثل ما حكينا it's irregular heartbeats. اما الفبريليشن it's uncoordinated بين الاتريا والفنتريكل. يعني بالاريثميا الفنتريكل والاتريا بالكونتراكتنج بوقتهم الصح، بس ممكن ما بصير عندك لب 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 لب، بصير عندك لب 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 هيك، فهمت علي؟ ما بيكونوا انه ريثميكلي. لما انت حتى تقدر تسمع الكلاس تبعك دائما لما نعمل احنا when we see the voice we have to comment انه it's rhythmic، انه it's happening at specific intervals. بس the intervals in themselves are right، يعني بصير عندك لب لب صح، لكن بالفبريليشن ما بيكون عندك لب لب صح، بيكون عندك يعني انه the ventricles are contracting ساعه لحالها، the atria ساعه لحالها، لانه بيكون في خلل بين coordination between the atria and the ventricles completely gone. Does that make sense? بس هو ما يجيبوه. اللي بيجيبوه مثلا في كم سؤال what's a complication of a myocardial infarction? The most common complication ventricular fibrillation. هيك هذا اللي حاحكي عنها. فخلصنا من هاي heart block. So how do we treat heart block? Pacemaker. How do we treat heart block? يلا خليكم مصحصحين، اوكي؟ سبق ادب. تمام، هلا عندنا I know إن هذا الشابتر مليان homeostatic imbalances، بس bear with me. By the way, under the most important thing، يعني إذا ما لحقتوا قبل الامتحان تدرسوا عدل، ادرسوا بس homeostatic وتوكلوا على الله. اوكي؟ فهلا ممكن يكون عندنا an ectopic focus. What does an ectopic focus mean?
abnormal pacemaker.
It's an abnormal pacemaker site. يعني a site other than the SA node, other than the ones that we talked about, AV وهدول. هاي هي abnormal pacemaker site. فthis ممكن يكون عندنا kind of normal شوي، بس ممكن عندنا completely defective SA node. حبة حبة. فالدefective SA node اللي هي مثلا ال SA node the defective SA node, what's going to take over after it? AV node. We already talked about this. It's going to be lower heart rate. هلا what's it normal SA node? اللي هو we're going to have an ectopic focus the abnormal pacemaker site, especially here. What would like initiate this?
The extra nicotine or caffeine.
Exactly. So extra nicotine, extra caffeine, or stress in general is going to give you another site in the heart that is going to be generating impulses other than the SA node, other than the ones that we talked about. But this is going to create obviously another beat. Then it's contracting, it's like مع نفسها, it's not rhythmic with the other ones. So it's going to create another beat. What do we call this beat? extra systole or an extra contraction. Systole and contraction. Extra systole. Now, usually this beat, this this other SA node, this other ectopic focus, usually it's a lot faster than the SA node. لأنه كلنا we're using nicotine, we're using Pacemaker, but it's faster. This is going to generate something called شو؟ The faster SA node. It's going to obviously generate a contraction. What do we call this contraction? It's going to generate a premature contraction. Okay? Premature contraction. حكينا أول شيء الectopic focus, this abnormal pacemaker site, it's faster than the SA node. Meaning, it's going to be generating impulses before the SA node. So what do we call this? Premature contraction. This extra systole إلها فرع premature contraction. Now this premature contraction إجا سؤال عنه اللي هو how will this premature contraction affect the filling time? The filling time of the heart. Is it going to increase or decrease? Decrease.
Yeah, it's premature.
Premature.
Is this contraction?
The next contraction.
Then I'm talking about the
one
filling
before.
time. The filling time of the next one.
Is this time to fill? So
Premature contraction بتصير قبل SA node. Increase. خليني اشرح. هلا حشيها. ثاني. Okay. أول شيء حكينا إنه it's faster, so it's gonna beat prematurely, صح؟ هلا سيبكم من هذا الخط الأحمر وبصطلعوا على الأزرق. عندكم هنا SA node contraction normal. بعدين عندنا filling time. بعدين another SA node contraction. بعدين filling time. نحن بنعرف إنه إذا صار SA node صار عندنا premature contraction by an ectopic focus رح تصير prematurely يعني before. It's going to happen before the SA node. But this, as you can see, is going to increase filling time. So I think بعد. هلا this one is your actual contraction. This is what's actually going to remove all of the blood from the ventricles. Like in the SA node contraction, which is generally you would expect to be the normal contraction, it's going to be useless almost. لأنه it's going to be felt as a thud. Okay, it's gonna happen أول شيء in between the filling time. The ventricles are not full yet, but it's kind of useless, صح? So the main, the actual contraction is done by the premature contraction. With the SA node, which is usually the normal contraction, how do we hear it? A thud. يعني لما تحطوا stethoscope, you're just gonna feel like في شيء بس ضرب box. But it's not a normal. حيكون في basically 3 beats. مش لب ضب. حيكون لب thud ضب. Make sense?
Yes.
So, in premature contraction, does it increase filling time or decrease filling time?
Increase.
Okay, high example. This is an example of the extra systole. You're going to see an extra contraction.
Can you repeat why it decreased
شوف عندك أنت هون a normal SA contraction بعدين filling. Normal SA بعدين filling and you have your normal filling times. Okay? بعدين أنت عندك premature contraction اللي بتصير. عندك premature contraction اللي بتصير قبل SA node. هلا this contraction بما إنه صارت قبل SA node الفيلينج تايم ما رح يتغير. بس أنت بعديهم. يعني إنه بعدها صار الفيلينج تايم increase هاي X axis و Y axis بتتخيل. فهاي filling time increase. بعدين the normal contraction which is the SA node contraction is going to be felt as thud. لأنه أصلاً شوفي هنا you're not done filling yet. يعني this SA contraction is going to contract, the ventricle is going to contract when the ventricles aren't even full yet. But it's just going to contract معناتها نفسها. It's just going to release a very minimal amount of blood which is going to be felt as a thud. Does that make sense?
Yes.
مثل ما حكينا
Nicotine.
هي premature contraction is caused by the ectopic focus. اللي هو an abnormal pacemaker site. How do we get the abnormal pacemaker site? Nicotine, caffeine, stress, وهيك أشياء.
البعض الأول طلع شيء ولا لا؟
شو؟
البريميتر كونتراكشن. البعض الأول
بيطلع all of the blood. most of the blood. بعدين بصير عندك انت قصدك هيك هذا سؤالك؟ اوكي بالpremature contraction ولا contract يس بيطلع most of the blood لانه it's the first contraction. بس بعدين بالnormal contraction الاس اي نود contraction رح يصير عندنا انه just like basically just spurting هيك a little bit of blood لانه you're not even done filling. Does that make sense?
Yes.
ها؟
الحين مش فاهم كيف يعني
خلاص بشرح لك بعدين كيف عشان نكمل. صرت احفظ انجليزي.
هو هذا خير.
اوكي.
اسمع هي كونتراكشن قبل الفيلم.
ايوه.
تخيل في صار له كونتراكشن قبل ما يصير في فيلم اصلا. فانت سويت كونتراكشن في البدايه بعدين راح تسوي فيلم فالمده بتاعت الفيلم طولت. فاهم؟
الفيلينج تايم لانه شوف الكونتراكشن تبعت الاس اي اتس نوت ان اكشوال كونتراكشن يعني انت يا دوب ما طلعت اصلا بلاد فهاي ما بنعتبرها كونتراكشن فانت من البريماتيور كونتراكشن للفيلينج تايم صار في اكثر مكان لانه هي اصلا ساعه بتصير قبل الاس اي
بس
كونتراكشن.
الكونتراكشن هل هي بالاتريوم ولا بالفنتريكل؟
فنتريكل بنحكي عن الفنتريكل كونتراكشن هاي اكستراسيستول بالفنتريكل شوفي فنتريكولر اكستراسيستول. اوكي بسم الله. هلا let's talk about electrocardiography اللي هو الاي سي جي. اوكي الاي سي جي it measures ايش؟ does it only measure action potentials that generated by the pacemaker cells? لا. ها? Exactly. It measures the contraction generated by everything. The pacemaker cells and the contractile cells. أحمد بعدين عشان he's gonna not listen to this بعدين حنرجع repeat cycle. Okay? هلا أول شيء let's start. This is pretty easy يعني بس common sense after a while. بس let's start. أول شيء بنبدأ من ال SA node. The SA node is primarily responsible for the depolarization of wave of the atrium. Okay, very important. The SA node is primarily responsible for the depolarization of the atrium. Why is that important? لأنه هلا لما I look at an ECG وهاي هي depolarization of the atrium هاي P wave بنسميها. When I look at an ECG a patient comes وعنده a problem بالintrinsic intrinsic conduction system. لما أنا أطلع على ECG أنا بدي أعرف من وين طالع البروبلم. هل طالعة هي من ال SA node؟ هل هي من ال AV bundle؟ هل هي من ال AV node؟ لأنه إذا من ال SA node فورا رح يكون في مشكلة وين؟ بالatrium بالP wave. So if the P wave is normal, that means that the SA node is normal. لكن if the P wave is abnormal, that means إنه حيكون عندي مشكلة بالatrium and the whole heart. So how do I make sure that the SA node is normal? I look at the P wave, which indicates
atrial depolarization.
هلا after atrial depolarization شو رح يصير عندي؟
AV.
atrial contraction.
Yes.
صح؟ It's common sense. You have to think about it. حكينا electrical events precede mechanical events. So after atrial depolarization happens, يصير عندك contraction. اوكي؟ بعدين عندنا the delay. تذكر الديلي اللي حكينا عنه بالاي نود؟
Yes.
هذا هو. This is where it shows على الاي سي جي. This delay actually shows على الاي سي جي اللي هو this line over here. الكيو بين البيك وبين الكيو. Again, why did we delay? Why did we start this delay?
Because we want to atrial contract fully then the ventricle.
Okay? So we have to make sure that the atria contract before the ventricles can contract. فبصير عندنا this delay. وليش حكينا بصير عندنا هذا الديلي؟ Three reasons. Narrow myocytes. Less gap junctions. Cardiac skeleton. Okay, عندنا cardiac skeleton separating the atria from the ventricles. So this is why بصير عندنا هذا delay. Okay, فهون over here this is the delay caused by mean which node? AV node. And طبعا بما انه ما عندنا delay ما في action potential ما في ولا شيء فما حيكون في upward deflection. That's why it's just a simple line. Make sense?
Yes.
بعدها عندنا ال atrial repolarization. بس where is the atrial repolarization in this ECG? It's hidden مع ال QRS. Why is it hidden مع QRS?
Because it's happening.
It's happening a lot. Exactly. Okay. هلا أول شيء as you can see over here هذا الاتريا صارت شو أحمر. الأحمر هذا أحمر indicates repolarization. So it has contracted وهلا it wants to repolarize. فهون عندنا starting of the ventricular depolarization. فالatrial depolarization is also يعني you have exchange of ions, you have there's change in membrane potential. So you would expect إنه it's gonna show on the ECG. لكن بما إنه it happens simultaneously along with the QRS which is the ventricular depolarization راح يكون ما راح يكون مبين. Okay? بالQRS عندنا two things but one of them is not showing. QRS ventricular depolarization and atrial repolarization. And that's it for this one. After it عندنا an ST segment. ممكن a lot of you سحبتوا على this segment but it's actually very important. This ST segment indicates the time that the whole ventricular, and again emphasis on ventricular, not the whole heart, just the ventricles are depolarized. This ST segment اللي من هون خلصنا depolarization. هلا طبعا they're gonna sustain depolarization. Why are they sustaining depolarization? How are they sustaining depolarization? By calcium. أيوة by calcium the plateau. Okay? The plateau اللي هو the calcium influx into the cell, the slow channels is what gives you this whole area. هاي شايفين كيف هلا بتصيروا تربطوا الأمور؟ عشان تفهموا الشابتر لازم دائما تربطوا الأمور. بعدين حنربطهم لسه أكثر بهاي الفيلم. Anyways, فالcontractile cells الventricular الكالسيوم راح يصير عندنا البلاتو فit's going to cause المايوكارديوم to be depolarized وحيصير عندنا this segment of complete depolarization. تمام؟
Yes.
So the ST segment indicates
Ventricle depolarization.
complete the depolarization of ventricular myocardium, not the whole heart. هلا عندنا the T segment or the T wave اللي ببين لنا the ventricular repolarization. which atrial repolarization as we said is hidden, لكن the ventricular repolarization is not hidden. It's over here. تمام.
Should we know the location?
ماشي.
Should we know the location, the apex?
من الايبكس تبدا ايوه لفوق. اكيد هيك بنزل depolarization وهيك بيطلع depolarization. Okay. فبعدين عندنا another segment that indicates إنه the ventricular repolarization is complete, and then we can start another P wave and then continue. Okay?
Sure.
Is everything clear?
Yes.
هلا عندكم a very annoying homeostatic imbalance هيك مدفوش in one of the cells, in one of the pages, or you might not focus on it, بس بيجي منه questions usually, or they're not really well explained. I think لأنه رح ناخذه بعدين in year 2. بس I'll tell you guys what you have to know. Okay. أول شيء عندنا an enlarged R wave. What will an enlarged R wave indicate? تعرفوا QRS. What will this wave large? If it was large, what will it indicate?
Enlarged ventricle.
Enlarged ventricles. And when can we get enlarged ventricles? Ventricular hypertrophy.
Stenosis of the blood.
Okay, that's going to happen. Why?
Myocardiomyopathy.
Okay, exactly. هلا لما مثلا يكون عندكم أي strain على the heart جاي من برا اللي رح نحكي عنه اللي هو الafterload، okay؟ لما يكون في high blood pressure من الأورطة طالع، يعني من الأورطة هناك عندنا high blood pressure which is not letting the ventricles pump. It's not letting the ventricles remove all of the blood اللي عندها. So the ventricles are immediately going to start to hypertrophy. This hypertrophy it's going to lead, the ventricle is going to think, I'm increasing contractility. Now I have more cells, so I'm able to exert more power. So I'm increasing contractility, and therefore حيطلع لنا enlarged R wave. إنه more cells, more action potentials that are generated, and more action potentials that are picked up by the electrodes that you place on the heart. بدك تعرفوا إنه عندكم electrodes والleads وهالأشياء. عندكم 10 electrodes بس 12 leads. leads اللي هم بيشوا على ECG إنه هيك بكون wait, I don't think it's here actually. عندكم 12 leads that pick up different signals from the whole body. You don't have to know them, don't worry. Just know عندكم 10 electrodes و 12 leads. Okay. هلا عندنا an ST elevation and an ST depression. What would this indicate? ST elevation, ST segment, hi. It's a segment. It's a segment. It's not a wave. But what if it was a wave? If it was up or if it was down?
So the
What does that indicate? Ischemia. Why? What does ischemia mean?
Insufficient blood flow.
So what will that lead to? Ischemia. Ischemia to the myocardium. Ischemia to the myocardium. Exactly. It's going to lead to an MI. It's going to lead to a myocardial infarction. تعرف أول شيء عندنا two steps for the MI. عندنا الأنجينا بيكتوريس بعدين عندنا المايوكارديال انفاركشن. الأنجينا بيكتوريس اللي هي شو؟ You have to explain من الأول بس. Okay? We'll go back to it. الأنجينا بيكتوريس اللي هي you have ischemia but the cells don't die. The cells are still okay. The only يعني angina pectoris اللي هي pain. Angina I believe is يعني pain. Angina pectoris in the pectoral region اللي هي the chest region. So pain in the chest region, angina pectoris indicates إنه you have ischemia, but it's not sufficient enough to cause a myocardial infarction. Basically like the step before. So this is going to cause pain. And then if you have a lot of ischemia, that's going to cause a myocardial infarction. What's the other word for a myocardial infarction? Heart attack. فاللي هي بصير عندكم very low usually بيكون هاي مثلا causes atherosclerosis or مثلا a lesion that's affecting one of the hearts. Usually it's atherosclerosis because something blocking one of the arteries the coronary circulation. صح the coronary circulation that supplies the myocardium.
yes.
So if something is blocking the coronary circulation, we're gonna get angina pectoris, and if it's really bad, we're gonna get MI. The MI, this is how it presents. Actually, حتى I didn't know this قبل. I found this out very recently. في شيء عندنا اسمه STEMI. It's very common. هي classical MI. STEMI stands for. I don't know what STEMI stands for. STEMI. Break it down. STEMI. STEMI. So all of the words that are in what I said are in this line. STEMI.
ST elevation.
وواحدة MI حكيناها. Myocardial infarction. Okay? But STEMI is an ST elevation myocardial infarction. It's one of the most common types of myocardial infarction. حتى I saw one when I was shadowing. وإجا حدا عنده myocardial infarction. What did they do for him? ودوه فورا على الكاث lab اللي هي Canadaization lab. What do they do there? Does anyone know? Catheterization lab. It's basically where they apply stents. صح إن هلا حكينا الMI what causes it usually? Atherosclerosis or some plaques in the heart and the arteries that are blocking major arteries that supply the heart wall, the myocardium. So if they were blocked, رح يصير عندي myocardial infarction. فأنا هلا I have to open these arteries. ففورا بودوا البيشنت على الكاث لاب وبيجيبوا something بيودوا هم من هون بيفتحوا إبرة وبيودوا زي يعني واير للهارت. Okay, بيفوتوا على الهارت وبي apply something, they insert something called stents. These stents are like a little balloon, an inflatable balloon that you insert into the heart so that you open the artery. So you open it and you start so that you allow the blood flow back again to the ischemic area. هلا لا سمح الله if there was if someone did not catch the person really early, they didn't call the ambulance really early, and the left ventricle was damaged. What's gonna happen?
Heart failure.
خلاص death. If the left ventricle was damaged for a long time, immediately death لأنه خلاص you're not pumping blood into the heart. I mean into the body. Your systemic circulation is immediately going to fail. Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. هلا مثل ما حكينا ST elevation is ischemia. فان ST elevation or depression, what does it indicate? Ischemia. This by the way هيك بس كاتبين بالكتاب. ST elevation indicates ischemia. prolonged QT interval is going to indicate شو repolarization abnormality. This repolarization abnormality ليش؟ هاي ال Q وال T interval. هون عندنا two repolarizations that are happening اللي هم atrial repolarization over here and
ventricular
اللي
repolarization.
هي T wave. So if this area was prolonged, this is going to indicate ventricular problems and repolarization. So these two, the STEMI, ischemia, and the repolarization problem, high exam question by the way, it's going to increase the heart, it's going to increase the probabilities of getting a ventricular arrhythmia. Okay, again, it's going to increase the probability of getting a ventricular arrhythmia. I think هل حتسألني وأنا حكيت fibrillation بالغلط، بس it's a ventricular arrhythmia. فالستمي المyocardial infarction with repolarization abnormality is going to make you at risk of ventricular arrhythmia. High exam question. هي أصلا مكتوبة بس again يعني something you wouldn't think is important. Okay. هلا over here عندنا some ECGs. We have the normal sinus rhythm or the junctional secondary heart block or ventricular fibrillation. هلا junctional rhythm is basically when the SA node is not working. هلا مثل ما حكينا ال SA node if it wasn't working كيف رح يبين على ECG? P wave is not working either. over here the P waves are absent. صح؟ So I think no P wave. By the way أنا حاطة هاي الأشياء اليلا مشان تتذكروهم لأنه they can get you a picture in the exam and then they can ask you which type of ECG is this or like a characteristic like they can get this and then you can tell you which of the following is true. You're gonna have to مثلا if the options were P waves are absent, in fact P waves are absent. honest I think these look like days conjunction rhythm وبعدين هون the secondary heart block هم هون secondary two هون you have two like humps two mountains two وبعدين ventricular fibrillation اللي هي كلها دي في عندكم دي لا دي ventricular fibrillation. صراحة ما مرت علي وممكن ما أفكر لسه. فهلا مثل ما حكينا junctional rhythm P waves are absent and then بما أن the P wave the SA node is not working what's gonna work?
AV node.
AV node and what's the heart rate gonna be?
40 to 60.
50 يعني بالنص. Okay, so they can get you كمان which of the following is true? AV node is facing the heart as حتى ممكن ما يحكي AV node. The heart rate for this person is going to be between 40 to 60. So you immediately have to know that this is the correct answer. Okay. بعدين عندنا secondary heart block. شو حكينا التريتمنت للهارت بلوك؟ Pacemaker. والتريتمنت للهارت plug sedation. Okay. So over here the secondary heart block the SA node is working. هون ال SA node was not working. هون ال SA node is working بس ال AV node is not working. That means إنه شو رح يصير بالventricles؟ الventricles ما رح يوصل لها information صح؟ لأنه ال AV node is the bridge between the atria and the ventricles. احنا قلت حكينا في عندنا cardiac skeleton بيناتهم ما بنقدر نطلع impulse غير بال AV node. فإذا ال AV node كانت خربانة شو رح يصير؟ No ventricular contraction, no ventricular depolarization. So that's هاي حتصير عند secondary heart block. So we immediately have to put a pacemaker so the ventricles contract. طبعا this is very dangerous لأنه it's happening to the ventricles. Something was happening to the atria يعني ها بنمشي الموضوع بس always if it's the ventricles it's immediately a big problem. بعدين عندنا هاي اوكي بعدين عندنا ventricular fibrillation. بعدين عندنا ventricular fibrillation اللي هي just very disorganized and you usually see this in an acute heart attack or in an electric shock. So if someone got electrocuted by something their heart rate is just going to go crazy. حضرتك في عندنا fibrillation شو معناها كان؟ Good job. Okay, uncoordinated atrial and ventricular contraction. الأريثميا شو كانت؟ irregular heartbeat. أما هاي fibrillation, uncoordinated atrial and ventricular contraction. So as you can see, there is obviously no coordination here. Everything is just like chaos. Okay, are there any questions?
No.
Would you guys like me to repeat something? أكيد؟ Okay, أنا ما خلص. هلا عندنا cardiac cycle. So what is heart contraction? What's another word for heart contraction?
Systolic.
Exactly. فالسيستولي اللي هي heart contraction والdiastole اللي هي heart relaxation, and we're usually referring to the ventricles and obviously they relax, the atria and the ventricles they relax at different times. واحدة contracts واحدة relaxes, بس هنا usually we're referring to ventricular contraction. Okay. هلا let's break this down one by one. I don't know if you guys can see. If you have this الكتاب it would be a good idea to open it عشان تشوفوا. Okay. بسم الله. فأول شيء let's look at what we have over here. أول شيء عندنا دي ECG that we were just talking about. خلاص we broke this down. We know what each one indicates. صح؟ And now we have the pressure. This pressure indicates the pressure of the contraction for three things. Over here we're describing three things. The purple line اللي هو هذا الصغير اللي تحت is the left atrium. Okay? The blue line اللي هو هذا الكبير is the left ventricle. بعدين عندنا الجرين is the aorta. هيا ده هون كم aorta. So again I'm going to repeat this because if you don't understand this you're going to be lost like the whole time. Purple left atrium, blue left ventricle والgreen aorta. تمام؟ هلا بعدين عندنا الفوليوم changes. هلا this volume for of what? Volume exactly. Blood in the ventricles. هلا أنا ما عم بحكي عن blood in the atrium. Okay? هاي volume of blood in the ventricles. And then شو كمان؟ وعندنا هون blood flow وعندنا heart sound. طيب هلا first of all عندنا ال P wave. ال P wave اللي هي atrial depolarization. نعرف إنه بعد ال atrial depolarization حيكون عندنا contraction, which is what I was like. Why I kept saying contraction? لأنه the moment the P wave ends رح يصير عندنا ال atrial contraction. And literally the moment it ends شوفوا حتى الفون خط. The moment it ends يصير عندنا ال atrial contraction. So that's the spike in pressure. So obviously, you're going to see that there is a spike in pressure in two things. The atrial pressure is rising and the ventricular pressure is rising. Left atrium and left ventricle are rising. Why? I'm just contracting the ventricle. I'm just contracting the atrium.
لا. It's not recording. I don't know if it was recording. I don't. هلا لاحظت.
المهم شو اسمه okay, so why is there a rise in pressure in the atria and the ventricles? The ventricles are feeling drop. Exactly. The blood رح ينزل من الاتria لعند the ventricles. So this is obviously going to open the AV valve, صح? The AV valve هلا is open. بعدين when I'm done, when خلص all of the blood went from the atrium to the ventricles, is the AV valve going to close or open? Close. لأنه ليش؟ Now ventricular pressure is higher than atrial pressure. Yeah. Okay. Ventricular pressure is higher than atrial pressure, so it pushes the blood back up. مثل الأمبريلا اللي حكينا صح؟ هلا الأمبريلا صح هي هيك الأمبريلا فكلياتها دم هون دم. It's covering دم. Okay. فهلا هون they're closed. بعديها okay. هلا the ventricles are closed. So this is exactly the time where the volume is going to be the highest. And what do we call this volume? End diastolic volume. Okay? End diastolic volume. At the end of the ventricular diastole, just before it contracts, okay, حيكون عنده the highest amount of blood volume. And it's important that you understand this. لأنه هلا حيصير في شوية calculations about the cardiac output here. So it's important that you know when the EDV, when the ESV, and we'll get to the ESV. Okay, فهلا the ventricles عندهم the highest amount of blood and now they're ready to contract. Okay? Now, oh, and by the way, the moment that the AV valves have closed, the moment that the atria contracted, خلص, it filled out all of the blood, it emptied out all of the blood that it had, and the blood went to the ventricles, the AV valves closed. So this is the first time that you're going to hear a sound. What's the sound? We call it a lub, basically. This is the first heart sound that you hear. اللي هو when which valve closes? The AV valve. What are they called, by the way? tricuspid وmitral. والثانيات شو بدنا نقيهم؟ السكندري شو بدنا نقيم في اثنين؟
get to the semilunar. هلا احنا بعدنا بالايتريا لانه احنا لسه عند الايتريا والفنتريكلز. فالاتريا الفنتريكلز هلا they're ready to contract. They have the EDV, which is the highest volume possible, and we just close the AV valve لانه هلا الفنتريكلز are gonna contract, و if they're not closed رح يصير عندنا backflow of the blood. The blood is gonna backflow into the atria. We're not gonna be able to bring all of the blood into your systemic circulation or the blood to go get oxygenated, صح؟ فهلا خلاص AV valve closed. أنا سمعت my first lump sound. Next عندنا by the way هاي هي بتصير QRS complex. أول ما QRS complex يخلص، أول ما يصير عندي ventricular depolarization هيصير عندي contraction of the ventricle. اوكي هلا عندنا شيء اسمه isovolumetric contraction phase. This isovolumetric contraction phase بصير like a split second before the ventricles contract. Okay, اللي هو both ventricles will have a lot of blood in them, or the same amount of blood in them, and all of the AV valves are closed. So this is called the isovolumetric contraction phase. لأنه بعدين حيصير عندنا isovolumetric relaxation phase. بس هلا هون احنا بالcontraction لأنه the ventricles are just about to contract. هلا the moment the ventricles contract كمان بصير عندنا arise وين؟ The ventricles. Let's say هلا احنا left ventricle صح؟ The left ventricles have contracted. Where is the blood going? The aorta. So obviously the pressure in the aorta is also going to spike, which is presented over here. They're going to have the same pressure. So as you can see, it was pretty low. The ventricles contracted. أعطوه كل البلد. فالaorta's pressure is spiking. هلا في شغلة هون which is also weird اسمها dichrotic notch. اللي مين بيعرف يجاوب why do we have the dichrotic notch?
من elasticity تبع aorta, right?
Okay.
So like when the blood is pushed in, it kind of forms a notch, and then blood goes back down into the ventricles, and then goes up.
Yeah, it's very close. Okay. So basically, oh, and by the way, طبعا when the ventricles contracted, the volume obviously نزل كثير نزل. فهلا the volume that is left in the blood, what do we call it? Exactly. هلا the volume that is left in the blood, the volume that's left in the ventricles after it has contracted, so after the isovolumetric contraction phase, بناديه شو؟ end systolic volume. The EDV happened when you had the maximum amount of blood in the ventricles. The ESV is what's left in the ventricles after contraction. Make sense? Which is really low compared to the EDV, obviously. وأنا كيف بدي أعرف how much the blood actually how much the blood actually why do I keep saying blood? How much the heart actually ejected? You subtract them. You subtract what was in the heart, and then you subtract what was left in the heart. Makes sense, صح? We'll talk about them كمان هلا more detail. المهم فهلا عندنا ESV الأند شو اسمه؟ الأند systolic volume, which is really low. بعدين let's explain this dichrotic notch thing. احنا هلا بنعرف ان pressure goes from ايش؟ high to low. فobviously هلا الventricles طلعت الpressure من high ventricles to low aorta. That's why it went. اوكي وبعدين اول ما الventricles contract شو رح يصير للvalves that are عند الاورتا؟ They're gonna close. Okay, why? لانه اول شيء we're pumping blood against gravity. احنا عم نطلع فوق. First of all أول ما البلد يروح لعند الأورتا it's gonna want to go back. That's why we have to close the valves اللي هم semilunar valves. هلا أول شيء عندنا gravity which is going to bring the blood back down. The second thing is هلا احنا حكينا blood likes to flow from high to low. فهلا صار عكسنا السيناريو. صار الهاي وين؟ aorta واللو وين؟ ventricles. Oh my god.
شهد قاعد اصور خلاص.
بس اللي beginning اوكي anyways فصار عندنا high وين بالاورتا واللو بالventricles. So the blood in the aorta is gonna want to rebound. It's gonna want to go back to the ventricles before it realizes and oh I have space to go out. I have space to go to systemic circulation. So it's gonna go. So this is what causes this initial rebound. Okay, so the blood goes, the blood decreases, okay? It's gonna wanna go back to the ventricles, but then it's gonna be like, oh, khalas, just let me go to the body. It's gonna go back to the main part of the aorta, which is gonna increase the pressure in the aorta right here, creating your diaphragmatic notch. Then it's gonna go to the systemic circulation. Does that make sense? Do you guys want me to repeat? Okay? فبعدين هلا over here after contraction of the ventricles رح يصير عندنا ventricular relaxation phase or the isovolumetric relaxation phase اللي هو the pressure is going to fall greatly. شوفوا هاي great spike low spike. The pressure is going to fall بالventricles. And this is also when the semilunar valves close to prevent the rebound or the backflow from the aorta back to the heart, to the ventricles. And also when the semilunar valves close is when we hear the second sound, which is the double. So the first sound that we heard was when the AV valves close. The second sound that we hear, heartbeat, is when the semilunar valves close. So they're both closed, not open, okay? Close. And كمان ممكن يخربطوا لكم بكره واحدة close open خلاص أنت شوف close بعدين شوف semilunar aortic first sound, semilunar second sound. Make sense? Everything is okay with this? Okay. And then under the heart sound, try to memorize these. They're just the spaces because we didn't talk about them. فنعرف إن the heart extends from where to where? What's the margin? T1 to T5. Okay. The intercostals. 2, not 5. Between 5 and 6. Exactly. فعندك من second rib to the 5th intercostal space. Intercostal space يعني intercostal cartilages. مو مبين هون. الcostal cartilages اللي هم عندكم السترنم اللي هم هاي. بعدين الرibs مش فورا you get bone, you have cartilage اللي هم الهاينال cartilage هذول costal cartilages. It extends from the second rib to the 5th intercostal space, the space between the 5th and the 2nd rib. مش بكره تحطوا إذا إجا مثلا second بعدين between the 4th and the 5th rib. لا, it's between the 5th and the 6th. Okay, لأنه they can confuse you like that. But it's between the 5th and the 6th rib, not the 4th and the 5th rib. Okay. And so we already said in the closure of the AV valves gives you the first sound, the closure of the semilunar gives you the second sound. وهون there are just with stethoscope you can hear the valves. And there's nothing really to explain here. It's just the anatomy. It's not that important. But I'm gonna give it just in case. Okay. هلا we actually already talked about this. كان عندنا incompetent valves والstenotic valve. Incompetent valve شو كانت؟ doesn't flow. So it's gonna cause backflow. What about the stenotic valve? Stiff, so leads to narrowing. Okay. Narrowing, what is it gonna cause?
Less cardiac output.
Yes, exactly. Less cardiac output. ليش؟ لأنه the blood is not going from the blood is not properly exiting the heart. It's not properly exiting the chambers. It's stuck in the chamber that it's in because of the narrowing. يعني باب ضيق basically. narrow يعني ضيق. فالstenotic valve is باب ضيق. So you're obviously not going to be able to fit as much blood in. لكن an incompetent valve is a valve that does not close properly, which is going to lead to backflow. Okay. Backflow in which ventricle is going to cause the most damage? Left ventricle. This is which valve, by the way? Mitral. Tricuspid right, mitral left. Okay, so damage to the mitral valve is going to be the most devastating. Okay, I think this was a question. Okay, this is like the last part. غير الاناتومي اللي بده يضل الاناتومي اهلا وسهلا. Okay. فعندنا هلا cardiac output. What's cardiac output? In one line.
اللي هو amount of blood pumped in 1 minute.
Exactly. What about stroke volume? Okay, هاي صح بس انه give me the.
What's left?
لا what's the exactly. ففي فرق. هلا cardiac per contraction. Okay, cardiac output is the amount of blood that has cardiac, stroke volume is the amount of blood that has left the ventricles per beat, per more contraction. How much هلا أنا بدي أعرف how much blood left this ventricle now. رح أحسب need stroke volume ولا cardiac output. Stroke volume لأنه it's not per minute. تمام. طب هلا how am I gonna like compensate for that difference? If أنا بدي أعرف cardiac output, how will I be able to find out?
Multiplied by heartbeat.
Exactly. فاحنا عندنا how many heart rates per second per minute approximately. So you're gonna multiply that by the stroke volume, which is this formula over here, and you have cardiac output, which is per minute, multiplied by the heart rate, which is also per minute, multiplied by the stroke volume, which is the amount of blood that has left the ventricle in this beat. So I'm gonna get these two, multiply them, and then get the cardiac output. طب هلا how will I maintain cardiac output if my stroke volume is lowered? Exactly. So it's just math, صح? Makes sense. If لا سمح الله مثلا stroke volume نزل, what are some examples ممكن ينزل stroke volume? Okay. Okay.
If you move a lot, less venous return.
This one's the exact one I was looking for. كلهم صح, بس mainly less venous return. Okay, if you're not moving a lot, less venous return is going to lead to low stroke volume. So how is the heart going to compensate for this? To maintain, you have to maintain a certain cardiac output so that you are able to give enough nutrients, enough oxygen to all of the cells in your body. If this cardiac output is not maintained, يصير عندنا ischemia, بعدين cyanosis, بعدين لا سمح الله even more complications. So in order to maintain this cardiac output, I have to increase the heart rate, increase contractility, كل هاي السوالف مشان I maintain cardiac output. If my stroke volume was lower. Make sense? Okay, how about the stroke volume with EDV with ESV? How will I get stroke volume with EDV with ESV?
Subtract.
Why?
Subtract. Because at the start of the contraction, before the contraction happens, the ADV, then at the end what's left after the contraction is the ASV. So what left the part when the contraction happens is the ASV.
Exactly. فمثل ما حكت أخذت شوكولاتة. كل يوم أخذت شوكولاتة. Okay. فعندنا الستروك فوليوم اللي هي per beat صح؟ واحنا بنعرف انه ال EDV اللي هو شو كان؟ الدايستوليك اللي what's in the heart just before the ventricles contract. وال ESV اللي هو what's left in the heart after contract. ف subtracting them is going to tell me how much actually left the heart. صح؟ But this is literally my stroke volume. How much blood actually left the heart is the stroke volume. But that's how you calculate it. Pretty simple صح؟ هلا فهاي اجت سؤال know the values. You have to know the EDV is usually 120, the ESV 50 و subtract 70. كان في سؤال it was like which of the following is normal in a person كان عنده like multiple pathologies or something وبعدين they were like which of the following is not affected or شيء زي هيك and then you have to say the EDV was 120. Like it was like EDV 120. But make sure that you know the values and what each one stands for. Okay. هلا before we get into this, بس في شغلات that I want to make sure you guys understand. لأنه هاي كلها understanding. So make sure أنتم صحصحين معي. Okay. هلا EDV is determined by a long diastole. Why? EDV is determined or is increased by a long diastole. شو يعني long diastole? Long rest interval, which means that I have more filling time. Where did we also see more filling time? Premature contraction, صح؟ فهاي ما دخلها by the way بس عم نحاول نضبط الأمور. Okay? فبال EDV إذا عندي a long diastole, that would mean إنه I have a longer filling time, صح؟ But this would mean that more blood is going to fill into the atria and then get into the ventricles. فبالisovolumetric contraction phase شو حيكون عندي؟ More EDV. صح؟ حيكون عندي more EDV. And this is going to increase or decrease cardiac output. Increase. ليش؟ لأنه you're increasing stroke volume. صح؟ طيب. What's the other factor that can determine the EDV? هلا حكينا إنه long filling time or long diastole. Venous return. Okay, so venous return, if you're moving, if you have more blood that's emptying into the atrium, you're obviously gonna have more blood that eventually empties into the ventricles. You're gonna have more EDV. Make sense? كثير مهم فهمتوا هدول اللي هلا عم بحكي the next slide is gonna be really easy. The two things that determine EDV, long filling time or long relaxation period, and then the second thing is more venous return. Okay? هلا what about ESV? هلا احنا بنعرف انه it's the amount of blood that's left in the ventricle. صح؟ هلا what determines it? Arterial pressure. Can someone explain this to me? Arterial pressure.
If arterial pressure is too high, basically not all the blood is going to be ejected out of the ventricle.
Exactly.
So if it's too high, the ESV could be greater, which means the stroke volume is going to be
Good job. Okay, I'll explain again. If you have high arterial pressure, مش atrial, okay, arterial يعني arteries, okay, systemic or بالأورطة مثلا. Let's هلا كيف بالأورطة عشان it's close, it makes sense. If you have high aortic pressure or arterial pressure, again not atrial, what's gonna happen? احنا بنعرف إنه pressure flows from high to low. Okay, فهلا you already have high بالأورطة. The blood is not gonna go من الventricles لعند الأورطة. So obviously you're gonna have more blood in the ventricles. More blood is gonna stay in the heart لأنه you can't go from low to high. It has to be high to low. Make sense? You want me to repeat that? Okay. We said that ESV is the amount of blood that's in the ventricles after contraction. صح؟ if my ventricles are not able to contract, they're not able to empty the blood that's in them, شو رح يصير؟ ESV رح يطلع ولا حينزل؟ حيزيد. And is this going to increase or decrease stroke volume? Decrease. Why? لأنه it's math يعني. If this one increased, obviously stroke volume is going to decrease. فهلا how will I decrease the ESV? By increased blood pressure. For hypertension, if you have high blood pressure, or we're just using the aorta as an example. If you have high pressure in the aorta, okay? I feel like I have to draw this now. Does this work? Okay? If you have high blood pressure in the aorta, okay, and then the ventricles فيهم blood. احنا بنعرف انه فهون عندنا اليوريثم وهون عندنا الفنتركل. Okay? فهون we have high blood pressure كثير high. This is arterial مش atrial. ما تخربطوا atrial. إذا كان عندنا high atrial pressure شو حيصير؟ high ESV ولا low ESV؟ atrial أو بالstroke volume. atrial increase stroke volume صح؟ لأنه it's increased venous pressure. ففي فرق. Don't confuse الatrial بالarterial. الatrial إذا كان عندنا high atrial pressure, that means إنه more blood goes to the ventricle, means إنه حيكون عندنا high stroke volume و high cardiac output. Make sense? لكن إحنا هلا عم نحكي عن arterial. Okay? فهالarterial إذا عندنا high blood pressure هون وإحنا we know إنه blood pressure flows from high to low. فهلا هون أنا عندي low pressure. Compare هون في pressure بالventricles أكيد. But compared to the arterial blood pressure, it's high. This is really high. So how is the blood going to go from the ventricles to the aorta if there's already high pressure here? احنا بنعرف إنه it has to go from high to low. It's supposed to go like this. By the way, this is also this is kind of the explanation of show the dicrotic notch. صح؟ لأنه كان عندنا high pressure هون, low pressure هون, but the semilunar valves are closed. They rebound and then they have to leave. The blood has to leave. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Everyone understood this? Yeah. Okay. Does this actually make sense? Seriously? Does anyone want me to repeat? Okay, sure. Okay. The other factor that is going to also determine ESV is ventricular contraction. هلا if the ventricles are contracting really well, does that mean a high amount of blood is going to stay in the ventricle or low amount of blood? Low amount of blood, so obviously حيكون عندي low ESV. Okay? But if I have high arterial blood pressure, شو حيصير؟ High arterial blood pressure. Less
blood left in the ventricle.
less ولا high ESV? If you have high arterial blood pressure, arterial.
Less blood will be left in the ventricle.
لا.
What are you asking?
If you have, I'm asking about the ESV. If you have high arterial blood pressure, هلا اللي أنا حكيته. أيوة, the ESV is increased or decreased? Increased. لأنه you have more blood left. لأنه the blood wasn't able to leave. The blood wasn't able to leave from the ventricles, so it's going to stay in the ventricles. Is this high or low ESV? High ESV. طيب هلا if I have high contractility of the ventricles, شو رح يصير للبلد؟ It will be low ESV, leading to high or low cardiac output? High cardiac output. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So basically you're saying that they both increase based on arterial and arterial.
Sure.
You said that in the arterial when the pressure increases, the SV increases in contraction. So in the arterial it's the same thing.
لا لا, in the arterial, we're talking about the ESV. It's gonna increase if you have high arterial blood pressure. لكن if you have high atrial blood pressure, حيكون عندك high venous return, صح؟ And that means that you're gonna have more stroke volume. ليش more stroke volume؟ لأنه خلق ال EDV. هلا شوفي الارتيريال بنحكي عن ESV. الاتريال نحكي عن EDV لأنه الاتريال هي اللي بتجيب لك البلد، صح؟ It's going to basically load more blood into the ventricles, leading to higher EDV. Higher EDV من الفورمولا EDV هاي طلعت حيكون عندك high stroke volume. صح؟ Make sense? Are you sure? But this whole thing basically explains what we just said. Yeah. But with fancier names يعني. First of all, عندنا another name for the EDV is إيش؟ Preload. Preload is يعني whatever was loaded into the heart. Okay, whatever volume you have in the heart. We call this preload. بعدين عندنا ال ESV, which is affected by two things. It's affected by afterload. Okay. It's affected by afterload and it's affected by contractility, which we just explained. طيب؟ شو مثل ما حكينا شو هو by the way مين بيعرف شو الافترلود؟ Afterload. What does afterload mean? Afterload. انتو شو afterload؟
ESV.
لا, not really. Afterload affects the ESV.
Whatever it means to pump the blood out by the aorta.
Exactly.
Through the aorta.
Exactly. Afterload اللي هو whatever the pressure that the heart needs to exert in order to release whatever was in the ventricles. Why? Due to high pressure one. If we have high arterial pressure, that means that I have high afterload. Does that make sense? They're synonymous. Afterload does not mean ESV. They're not the same thing. Afterload affects ESV. Is high afterload going to increase or decrease ESV? Increase. في حسبات decrease, okay? It's going to increase ESV. ليش؟ لأنه the heart أيوة في عندك كتير pressure بالأورطة. But the ventricles are not going to be able to pump. فحيكون في more blood left in the ventricle, leading to high ESV and low خلي الاي دي في ايوه ده صدمتوني ما دخل الاي دي في ورا هناك اوكي okay do you guys understand this okay do you want me to repeat again طيب هلا مثل ما حكينا if you have exercise or sympathetic activity and you're moving and you're breathing like well you're going to have high venous return. High venous return is directly going to affect the EDV, which is also called the preload, اللي هو the pressure that enters the heart. Preload اللي هو the pressure that enters the heart. فكمان عندنا something called the vein bridge effect اللي هي higher ventricular higher venous return is going to lead to higher atrial stretch, leading to higher atrial contraction, leading to the SA node beating faster. لأنه we have to start compensating. I can't just have higher venous return وهيك يعني على الله لازم كمان يصير في heart rate إنه تعلى so that the heart is keeping up with the body's needs. لأنه this is obviously happening for a reason. And the heart is not increasing venous return هيك. You're obviously exercising هيك. So you have to also increase heart rate. So that you can here you're increasing heart rate and you're increasing EDV. How? Because of the venous return. How is the venous return affecting the heart rate? By the vein bridge effect. لأنه حيصير عندنا more blood in the atrium, more stretch in the atrium. So this is going to tell the SA node to start producing impulses faster. Make sense? But this is going to lead to high heart rate. And how does the venous return affect the EDV? Simply by literally existing, يعني you have more blood, you have more blood بالatria, it's going to lead to high or low EDV. حسب طفيته actually. High EDV, طفيت صح؟ High EDV. Okay? بس إنه if you understood what we said هون, خلاص you're actually good. Like this is just a summary. بعدين عندنا something called اللي هي the Frank-Starling law اللي هي if you have high EDV you're gonna have high stroke volume. Simple as that. Okay? So this is just all of this is gonna lead to high stroke volume. لا. Okay. بعديها how do we affect contractility? We already said this. How do we directly affect contractility? Exactly. By calcium. هلا مثلا if I want to increase contractility طبعا I need hormones for this. You're gonna take this من endocrine chapter إن شاء الله. فمثلا thyroxine, epinephrine, thyroxine هذولا we're gonna like basically tell the heart إنه يلا we need more calcium and this calcium is going to increase or decrease the plateau phase. Increase the plateau phase, increase contraction, increase contraction. And increase the strength of the contraction كمان. Okay? فهلا high contractility is gonna lead to low or high ESV. Low. ليه? Pumping more blood out of the heart. Less blood is staying in the heart, meaning less ESV. Okay. بعديها عندنا changes in the autonomic CNS output. But obviously if you're exercising, that means إنه the sympathetic nervous system is gonna be working, صح? But the parasympathetic is not gonna be working. So you're going to need to increase heart rate. How did we already say we're increasing heart rate? What's the name of the effect? Vein bridge. Okay, the vein bridge effect is what's going to be increasing heart rate. And how does it directly do that? Exactly, atrial stretch. And how did we get the atrial stretch? Venous. Okay, I'll explain it again لأنه حسيته طفيته. بس venous return part. Venous return is more blood going up. Venous return شو هم الveins that are emptying into the heart? Superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, coronary sinus, صح? So if you have more blood going back, and when you move, when you're sitting, I was gonna say supine, I'm starting to say medical terms. Okay? When you're resting, no venous return is there. And no, you're not moving. Typically your veins, they don't have as much pressure as
Did you guys present?
Okay. Also, did the doctors not explain this?
Oh, we have some.
So this is really important. Like كل الكويشنز بيطلع من هاي. كثير مهم. اوكي هلا يا طويلين العمر اسمعوا. What is venous return؟ احنا بنعرف انه هاي الاتريوم. هاي الرايت اتريوم صح؟ عندنا superior vena cava، inferior vena cava، وعندنا coronary sinus. ايزي؟ هلا الرايت اتريوم رح تعطي لل شو؟ رايت ventricle. وهي حتطلع لوين؟ or the trunk. Yeah? Into the lungs. هلا venous return basically means انه you have more blood emptying into the right atrium by exercise, by simply walking, المهم. بس if you're sleeping ما حيكون في as much venous return. ف venous return, high venous return VR يعني venous return is going to make more blood go where the right ventricle. Did you take a chocolate?
No.
Take it. Okay? Okay? So high venous return means that the more blood is in the heart right now. So this is gonna increase شو high? قبل الكونتراكشن ما تصير شو عندنا الفوليوم بنسميه؟ EDV. This is EDV. أكثر EDV. Just simply by having more venous return. طيب؟ Okay, but this is the first reason that we have high stroke volume لأنه EDV صار high. The second reason is due to contractility. هلا if this right ventricle started to contract even more. Okay. أول شيء هلا خلصنا من ال EDV لأنه ال EDV is before contraction صح؟ هلا عم نحكي عن مين؟ ال SV اللي هو left in the heart. طبعا less blood will be left in the heart. ف it's gonna be lower ESV. بما إنه إحنا عندنا الفورمولا it's math بما إنه high lower شو حيصير للstroke volume؟ higher stroke volume. Make sense?
Yes.
Makes sense. Okay. خلاص and that's it basically. إنه sympathetic activity affects contractility you get low ESV. وهاي اللي حكيناها الافتر لود اللي هي the back pressure exerted on the heart by the atrium by the artery مثل الاورطة. So if we have high blood pressure شو راح يصير لل ESV increase؟ ليه؟ Okay. Again, if we have high blood pressure بالأورطة, طبعاً I'm not going to be able to pump what I have in here, meaning إنه حيصير عندي you're welcome. Meaning إنه حيصير عندي شو؟ Low stroke volume due to easy صح؟ خلص. So, مثل ما already we said, how is cardiac output maintained when we have low stroke volume? Okay? Cardiac output من الفورمولا. How is cardiac output maintained when we have low stroke volume? By increasing the heart rate. هي الفورمولا multiplication. Okay? So now we have some chemical regulators of the heart rate. أول شيء حكينا which part of the brain regulates heart rate? Which one is more dominant? By which nerve? Huh? Vagus. Okay? شو كمان نعمل pop quiz بعدين عشان نتأكد. Okay? ولا يعني ولا في كهوت بس 5 اسئله for it's mainly for the anatomy عشان we need to cover it. بس انت اوكي هلا هاي very important كمان homeostatic imbalance. فعندنا hypocalcemia, hypercalcemia, hyperkalemia وhypokalemia. كاليميا اللي هي مين؟ كاليميا. بوتاسيوم. كالسيميا اللي هي كالسيوم. Okay? Hypocalcemia is going to depress the heart. Why? We have low calcium. True? Exactly. Less muscle contraction. أما hypercalcemia حيصير عندنا a lot more muscle contraction and that's not good. Anything زايد is not good. That means إنه حيصير عندنا إيش؟ arrhythmias. Okay? بعدين حيصير عندنا but we don't have to know the mechanism. يعني it's a lot. You're going to take this إن شاء الله CVS year 2. Okay? Hypercalcemia حكينا arrhythmias. بعدين hyperkalemia. This is probably the one that's going to come in the exam because it's like غير عن الباقيين. Hyperkalemia, which is a lot more potassium. What's going to happen? It's going to depolarize the resting membrane potential. Can anyone tell me why? Depolarize the resting membrane potential. What does this mean? Where is more positive? صح. Again, let's quickly draw this out. Cell membrane. NA برا و هاجو. This is usually شو؟ Negative ولا positive? شو حتى positive؟ شاطر. اوكي؟ فاحنا بنعرف انه الاكشن بوتنشال ايش؟ جوا بوزيتيف ولا جوا نيجاتيف؟ اكشن بوتنشال كل الشوكولاته اللي اعطيتكم اياها. I know it's a lot, I know it's overwhelming بس مش مشان خلص. اوكي؟ فجوا نيجاتيف برا بوزيتيف. بالاكشن بوتنشال بنعكس. فهلا اذا انا عندي a lot of كثير بلس هون، عندي كثير ليش؟ لانه عندي شو اسمها؟ hyperkalemia. ف in the case of no فكرتها اكس. اوكي؟ ف in the case of hyperkalemia اللي هي هون عندنا a lot of kalemia عندنا a lot of potassium inside the cell. This is going to become positive, or at least if not as positive, it's not going to completely become more positive than this, but it's going to become slightly. That's one hot positives. فهاي صارت شوي more positive. Exactly. فإذا هون أنا عندي depolarization thingy, صح عندنا resting membrane potential was at -70 or something. Okay. فالnegative resting membrane potential of a normal cell without this is -70. This cell. Let's say صارت -30 لنفرض. ليش؟ So this means that now it's easier for me to excite the cell.
Which is increased heart rate.
Yeah, which is going to lead to يعني بس more it's easier to excite the cell, easier to contract the cell, و probably more ventricular arrhythmias من هاي الحاجة. Okay? Not mentioned. You don't have to know غير إنه it depolarizes resting membrane potential. What does that mean? And the inside of the cell becomes more positive. So it's easier to excite the cell. خلص. وبعدين hypokalemia كمان arrhythmias. So the two arrhythmias, hyper و hypo, then hypocalcemia و hyperkalemia, and then they're all okay. بعدين عندنا this homeostatic imbalance, بتعرفوا انتوا tachycardia و bradycardia بتعرفوا كيف انتوا؟ No? Okay. Or just anytime. The most important thing on this is you're definitely gonna expect a question in time. Okay? You're definitely gonna expect it. I'll go back to the other ones in case you have to leave. Okay? You're definitely gonna expect a question on high side. اللي هي edema in either side of the heart. Why? هلا مثلا let's say أنا عندي heart failure due to any of the reasons. Okay, it can be so many reasons, neurological, pathological, heart block, anything. Okay? If I have left-sided heart failure, the left side, where does it pump? Let me. Aorta. So it pumps the systemic, صح? But where is it receiving heart from? It's receiving the left atrium. Where does it receive? Huh? The lungs, صح? خلينا شوي شوي. Okay?
Are you still recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. For the left atrium, where does it receive heart from?
Pulmonary veins.
Okay, it receives oxygenated blood from the lungs. صح. هلا لا سمح الله إذا صار في left side failure, okay, and the left ventricle was unable to pump, so it's completely useless as a pump. What's gonna happen to that blood? Where is that blood that's in the heart gonna go? If I can't move forward, if the ventricles cannot pump it, it can't move forward. The blood can't go. Where's the blood gonna go? Backwards. So where's it gonna go? Back to the lungs. Okay, it's gonna go back to the lungs. صح? Does this make sense? The left side is receiving blood من مين? Lungs. If the left ventricle is not working, it's not contracting, it's not pumping blood, the blood's gonna go back into where? The lungs. This is gonna create pulmonary edema. والله يعني إذا هذا السؤال ما بيجي عن جد ممكن أقطع إيدي. Okay? Left-sided pulmonary edema. تذكروها. It makes sense أصلاً مش بس حفظ. يعني افهموها. أما right-sided, it's gonna lead to peripheral congestion. ليش؟ Someone explain this to me. If the right side, the right atrium, the right ventricle بيبطلوا يشتغل.
You will push it back to the systemic circulation.
Which is into?
The body. This is the body. Peripheral
Yeah,
tissue.
give me the specific arteries. ثلاثة.
Coronary sinus.
صح.
Superior vena cava. Inferior vena cava.
شاطر. فهمتوها ليش؟ I'll explain again. هلا the right side of the heart receives blood from three places مثل ما حكينا. The superior vena cava and coronary sinus. If the right ventricle was unable to pump blood, what's gonna happen? The blood's gonna go back. Back way, أول شيء through the right atrium, but then back through the systemic circulation, through the superior and inferior vena cava and coronary sinus. That's simple. So it's gonna cause peripheral congestion. The blood's not gonna be able to pass through the blood, but it's gonna start pooling into the body. Like if this side is affected, the blood's gonna start pooling into the lungs. فحصير في شو suffocation. Obviously, يعني the lungs are gonna be engorged with blood. It's gonna be way too much like fluid in your lungs. We are gonna suffocate to death if you don't fix the problem. Okay? فhow do we treat this? طبعا obviously هلا we have way too much blood يا باللungs أو بالperipheral area, so we have to treat this using. So this happens every time, like always something has to happen. Okay? How do we treat this? By giving the patient diuretics or reducing afterload, يعني reducing the pressure of the system. Reducing basically ننزل الضغط للpatient. That's what we want. لأنه حاليا especially with right-sided failure, with peripheral congestion, you have hypertension. Even though the heart's not pumping well, like you have hypertension and all of the blood is pooling into your body, so you need to remove the excess blood by diuretics اللي هو يعني diuretics شو diuretics? That help you go to the bathroom basically. And then you're gonna remove all of the excess fluid from your body. The other way is reducing afterload. Reducing afterload and you're decreasing blood pressure. And then the third way that you can fix this is by increasing contractility. لأنه the whole problem is low contractility. So how do you fix it? Increase contractility. Everyone understands this? Very important slide. Okay, let's just go back to the homeostatic high. كمان مهمة. فهلا في عندنا congestive heart failure. By the way, congestive heart failure could lead to right-sided failure, left-sided failure. Okay, أنا عكست الأوربت عشان اللي كان بيطلع. لأنه that side is very important. فهلا congestive heart failure will lead to right-sided failure or left-side failure. So what are some causes of failure? You can't just have failure out of the blue. So the first one is the coronary atherosclerosis. This is one of the main causes of MI. So this is one of the main causes of MI. When your coronary circuit gets blocked, you're not going to have enough blood to the myocardium, so you're going to get ischemia and then MI. بعدين عندنا persistent high blood pressure. The persistent high blood pressure مثل ما حكينا high afterload فما حتقدري تطلعي. The heart is going to start pumping really hard in order to meet the demands of the body, even though هي مو الغلطانة. يعني الهاي الحالة مو غلطانة. مين الغلطان؟ systemic circulation, afterload. So the heart's gonna start wanting to fix the problem. So it's gonna start pumping really hard. That's gonna weaken out, and some cells might like die because of how weak they get. Make sense?
Yeah.
The third reason is multiple myocardial infarctions. Why will multiple myocardial infarctions lead to heart failure? Exactly, scar tissue. لأنه we know مثل ما حكينا إنه الهارت is amitotic if it gets damaged once, especially more than once. خلص it's gonna lead to connective scar tissue which cannot contract. إحنا المسل cells contract, connective tissue does not contract. That's going to lead to heart failure. Damage to which chamber is going to be the worst? Left ventricle. توقعوا هذا السؤال كمان. Okay? And then عندنا dilated cardiomyopathy اللي هي over here اللي هي the ventricles just become dilated and like they stretch and they deteriorate for unknown reasons. But this is just not that important صراحة. They don't really know the reason, it can just happen. But dilated cardiomyopathy is when the ventricles they stretch and they deteriorate for some reason of the reasons. Okay, I believe we're done. بس عندكم هاي homeostatic imbalance كمان ممكن يجي. Did you guys study this?
No.
Yeah.
I mean the doctors, did they explain it?
No, we did for DBLs.
That's crazy. Oh my goodness.
No, it's not included.
It's not? Are you sure?
It's also the development aspects and they said anything after the development aspect they exclude.
No, it was included. Okay, do you guys want to go back to the anatomy? No, we're done. If you want to stay, أهلا وسهلا. If you want me to explain something about anatomy really quickly, let's be.
That's good. بس the only thing دكتور عصام شرح إنه في شيء اسمه higher brain centers اللي هو the coronary, the cortex and the hypothalamus, والlower brain centers اللي هو الميجر of the gut.
Okay.
Is that correct?
I guess he is right. بس أنا لما حكيت higher brain centers I meant إنه higher brain center. Wait, في بس شغلة أحكي لكم إياها with regards to the coronary circulation. Last year بالفاينل إجى سؤال شوي زنخ اللي هو سألونا. It was, by the way, do you guys know about the matching questions? This semester حيكون عندكم something called matching questions. It's not all multiple choice. Any matching question, you have 4 matching questions. You have, let's say, 6 options. Or the question is there, and you have to match the question to the correct option. You can choose, usually you can choose the option more than once, which makes it annoying because you're not going to be solving by the process of elimination. So make sure that you actually understand what you're doing. And if you're guessing, guess wisely. And كان إجانا matching question على the arteries, على the placing of the arteries. It was such a weird question. والله هلا بتذكر الفاينل تبع البايو. ثانية.
هلا بالعادة الماتشنج نقطة واحدة
0. لا مش R. No, 0.5. Just the one that you got wrong. It's wrong. Usually each matching question is 1 mark. For each column is 0.25.
عارف الريكوردينج؟
بالكويز
عارف الريكوردينج خلاص؟
دقيقة بس خليني أحكي عن this question. هاي بالكاردياك فينز. أوكي كان عندنا ماتشنج question عليه.
ما يبين.
اتأكدوا إذا رح يعملوا لكم ماتشنج question. اسألوهم. I don't know ليش بطل يشتغل. Anyone there? I'm not really presenting anything that important. بس أهم شيء عرفوا places of the heart. I mean places of the arteries. يعني بالذات veins كان عليها matching question. يعني مثلا the great vein runs with this artery or along this sulcus or along this groove. Make sure that you know them. Yeah, that's it basically. Any other questions? Anything that else you want me to explain?
ده بس للكوروناري سيركيوليشن؟ أماكن الفينز بس للكوروناري سيركيوليشن.
بس الكوروناري. ايش قصدك veins? What other veins?
يعني ممكن يسأل مثلا the arms and the legs.
لا. كمان بس شغلة ما تخربطوا بالمسلز. I'm gonna ask you guys questions. يلا. Okay, trabeculae are found in which chamber? Trabeculae carni, the muscles.
Right ventricle.
Okay, بالventricles. Okay. What about the pectinate muscles? Atrium. What about the papillary muscles? Where are they found?
Right ventricle. Ventricles.
For the valves.
صح. Okay. So the pectinate muscles you'll find them بالatria, usually عند the auricles. usually عند الأوركز بالاتريا right atria. الترابيكولي you don't find them بالاتريا, you only find them بالوين؟ بالventricles. والpapillary muscles وين بتلاقوهم؟ بالventricles, يعني they're attached to the ventricle itself عشان الفالف to support the valve, صح؟ It supports it من تحت. حكيت إنه it's like an umbrella, صح؟ The papillary muscle itself is the stick that you hold, وthe chordae tendineae اللي هم the cartilages, the white cartilage is the sticks, المثل. Okay? فmake sure ما تخربطوهم لأنه they all look the same. PP هذول ما تخربط papillary pectinate yeah, that's it. The rest is really easy.
نسأل عن الانتيريور والبوستيريور والأشياء هاي.
Anterior شو؟
إنه you have to know if it's facing anterior or posterior or
the arteries.
كان في هيك زي البورد وبعدين في apex and where it's pointing.
الapex. الapex it's لتحت. Yeah, you have to know this stuff. الapex لتحت أما البيس لفوق. The base is pointing towards the right shoulder, صح؟ The base. صح. في سؤال which of the chambers constitutes most of the anterior surface of the heart? Anterior surface.
Right or left?
Right ventricle. It's right ventricle. Okay. A lot of people thought it was left ventricle. No, it's the biggest. It's left ventricle شوي جاي من ورا. أيوة. أما right inferior posterior. Inferior posterior.
لا هو غلط.
Okay, it's mostly inferior posterior. The right ventricle is what constitutes the anterior border. So what constitutes the base of the heart?
The apex.
Right, the right side. Right atrium. Right. Right ventricle.
Base.
Left.
Base.
الاتريوم.
واحد أي واحد.
Right atria أكتر بس two atria.
The right atrium is what constitutes the base. Well, the base is pointing to where? Right shoulder. Okay, so the right atrium is pointing towards your right shoulder, which constitutes the base.
بس right atrium.
Right, what's right atrium? What about the apex? High left ventricle. Okay, again, the left ventricle, apex. In base, right atrium, anterior surface of the heart, right ventricle. Make sense? Any other questions? Yes.
آخر شيء ESP will give هذول. They would like to ask you if this increases there will be like more cases questions.
No, it's most probably going to be case questions. ومثل ما حكيت لك مثلا لازم تعرف الvalues مشان إذا سألك which of the following is a normal value, which is not normal. هيك true false. هم كثير بيحبوا يلعبوا questions in bio in general. فكثير لازم تنتبهين معي الموضوع. Okay? حياتنا. الكويز تبعنا كان 20 questions. بس احنا we were only 2 chapters. كان بس blood و 3 chapters.
لا شو؟ CBS plus.
Blood test is not included. Okay, but that's good. That's good. That's gonna be similar. And the cardio and the crime, يعني you have this relatively same amount.
Kind of similar to your TBLs, the quiz, wouldn't that?
No, actually, the TBL questions are not similar to the quiz questions.
Yeah, they're not clinical. Yeah.
They are clinical, بس بحس the TBL questions are harder. يعني فيهم والله they are a lot harder. The quiz questions clinical بس more straightforward.
الTBL أصعب.
لا تعتمد على الأسئلة
بس weird.
يعرف في
Okay, can you stop the recording? يلا bye.